I'm about as real as they come.
All my beats tailored by Joe. House Digital.
Maserati Rick in Detroit, convertible bird in Miami. Graduated summa cum laude, strip club made a tsunami. Carlton Hines with the ball game, Grateful Edmonds with the snowflakes, Craig Pettis in the M-Town, Sal Magluta with the boat game, Falcone with the cocaine, like Freeway Ricky with the plug game, like Monster Cody in South Central, Larry Davis from close range.
Yo, we back. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb ties. We on our way to Puerto Rico with it. And all my Puerto Rican niggas, man. Y'all niggas get in the comment box, man. Y'all know we heading to the Bronx, man. We gonna fuck that shit up, man, 1970 style. Now, the guys that we gonna be covering today is gonna be the Torres brothers. That's gonna be Victor and Jorge Torres. Now, based on my research, like I start off some of these shits. When I say this shit is like a movie, this shit is like a movie, and we ain't talking paid in full. We ain't talking along the Scarface lines. These niggas was like narco traffickers. They weren't like drug dealers. They had a serious operation and a serious, like, almost like a Ford factory type of feel about this shit in 1970, and their drug of choice is going to be heroin. And what they were able to do and obtain with this heroin was mind-blowing to me. Now, this organization had one of the longest runs that I particularly covered. And like I said, from a lot of my research, I saw that it kind of started or got rolling sometime in the 70s. And it ran all the way up to when they were convicted in 1988. Now, in 1988, they will be sentenced to life in prison, both brothers, but their stories wouldn't end there. But before I kind of get into any of that, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about them. Now, in June of 1987, when the organization was raided, they wrote verbatim, a shopping center in suburban San Juan, Puerto Rico had the same name as a brand name of heroin sold on New York City streets, because it was owned by the same men who smuggled the drugs. Now let that set in. The brand name of heroin was named after the shopping mall, or the shopping mall was named after the brand name of heroin because it was owned by the men that sold the drugs. Many niggas bought a shopping mall off the heroin. Like I said, the organization started in 1976, and it ran all the way to 1988. And I think that's we have the crack era in the game. I also want to align the crack era with the blind era, because it seems like a lot of the times through the 1980s, up until when Ronald Reagan came in with like the war on drugs, it seems like a lot of the money was made and a majority of the drugs was sold. Now, when authorities raided the Torres brothers' operation, they arrested more than 40 people in New York and in Puerto Rico and accused them of conspiring to sell $300,000 to $400,000 worth of heroin in New York City each week. No, not a year. Not each month, but $300,000 to $400,000 worth of heroin each week. Now, when the agents seized them, they seized more than $2 million worth of heroin, more than $500,000 in cash, and that was seized during 20 raids that happened in the Bronx and Manhattan along the course of that sting. Like I said, it was 40 arrests, but most of them were made in New York City. But the ringleaders, who were Victor and Jorge, they were arrested at a luxury home in Bayamon, Puerto Rico. Now, at a press conference for the arrest, authorities would say that the Torres brothers owned 4 ships and the $30 million Tower Plaza shopping center that was in the San Juan suburb that we talked about earlier. Now, the symbol for the shopping center was the chess piece, the rook, and that was also stamped on the Checkmate brand of heroin that the brothers smuggled into Puerto Rico and that they sold in New York. The government would go on to charge the brothers with heading the organization that sold the heroin and then franchised more than 10 different other brands of heroin all along the northeast of the United States from 1976 on to 1988 when the organization was dismantled. Now, the brothers who were charged as kingpins were seemingly young. Victor Torres was only 26 years old, and Jorge was 31 years old. So for all of that they accomplished in the drug game, you could just imagine, and just to think about it, if Jorge was arrested in 87, that means he was right around 16 or 17. Or actually, I'm sorry, Victor was 16 or 17 when he got into the game. And according to the authorities, the Torres forfeiture was in the range of 20 to 30 million. The authorities would end up seizing control of that shopping center. And they also seized a lot of other things, like a bunch of luxury cars, a $160,000 Lamborghini. Now, y'all sit back and think in hindsight, man, this shit is 1987. These niggas is like we talk about Rich Porter and we talk about some of these, is one of these niggas Lulu? Now, their case was actually handled by former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and he went on to say that the Torreses invested their drug profits in legitimate businesses. As they spent more time operating the legitimate businesses, they turned over the day-to-day operations to another guy by the name of Nelson Flores. Now, Nelson Flores, along with the two brothers, like I said, were convicted of life, and that was behind the 1986 Drug Kingpin Act that was enforced, that pretty much made it mandatory where they would face a mandatory life sentence without parole for being the head of a drug conspiracy operation. Now, like I said, when they were convicted of life, that wasn't the end of them. Because based upon doing my research, I saw that it was reported by the New York Daily News that the two brothers on June 1st, 2020, won their release due to the Coronavirus Act. So I'm sure probably by now, who knows how that process works, they're probably on their way home. We want to welcome home the Torres brothers. Y'all stick around for the details and the breakdown of the case. We're about to get right into it. And y'all make sure y'all follow me on Instagram, Twitter. Y'all get in the comment box. Let me know who we need to cover, where we need to go. Y'all follow me on, like I said, Instagram, Twitter, POP_ALOT. And I'm going to be back with some more real trill spill shit. It's the Mobb. Mobb. Ties.